I'm hearing chastity and purity, and I'm kind of treating them synonymously, but I don't think I should be.
Mhm.
Right. So is
Yeah.
chastity defined as seeing a person, seeing a subject instead of an object? But if that's
Mhm.
what chastity is, what is purity? Like, how do we define that term?
Yeah. No, I think it's good to define our terms because the words abstinence, celibacy, chastity, and purity often kind of get all
Right.
commingled and mixed up and like celibate. Who would want to be celibate? So celibate is the state of not being married. That's what the word means.
Okay.
Abstinence means just not having sex. And so if you said that like Bob is abstinent, okay, like, that didn't really tell you anything about Bob. I mean,
Right.
Bob might be a virtuous guy and waiting for marriage. Bob might not be able to find a date, Bob might have died 30 years ago. Like, we don't really know
Right.
anything about Bob if
Death
you say
gets in
just
the
Bob
way all
Nasser.
the time. All the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, but abstinence is just what you're not doing.
Right.
Now, chastity is a virtue that applies to your sexuality. And it's just so for anyone's state in life, whether they're married, single, religious, we've all got to practice chastity, which means we're using the gift of our sexuality according to our own state in life. And so that looks
Mm,
like one way for a married person, one person for a single, one person for the religious. And purity of heart, in a sense, enables us to live out this virtue. And so, of all those terms, celibacy, abstinence, purity and chastity to me seem the closest in terms of a single heartedness
mm.
towards loving God. And it doesn't mean that you don't have sexual impulses or sexual desires. A lot of people whole quit on the whole idea of chastity because they think sexual desire is lust. And
Mm.
if I experience a sexual impulse, then I just sinned. I just failed God.
Hmm.
I messed up again. I must not be holy. But those sexual reactions, as such, do not have an ethical value
Right.
attached to them. What we do with that reaction can be virtue or can be vice. And if young people don't understand that, they're going to fall into this endless scrupulosity
Mhm.
that ends up just leading into discouragement, despair, and then you just give up. And then you're just going to explode because you're just trying to repress all these desires in an unhealthy way. And so chastity isn't just a blind inhibition of these desires, but the acknowledgement of their power and then turning to God
Yeah.
in our own weakness, not just getting stronger and stronger, but more, if anything, realizing our weakness so we can rely on Him to love as we ought to.
As you've been out talking about all of this stuff, do you find that people are surprised when they find out that the key to chastity, to purity, is not repression of desire, but is rather
Mm.
an acknowledgement of this thing that I want, that I'm experiencing, but directing it in such a way that it becomes something that is a reflection of what's good and my capacity for self-gift and things like that. Do you find that they're surprised that they don't just have to repress their feelings and desires?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people think I have a hard job selling chastity, but it's like we have all the advantage in the world because, like, their hearts are made for love, their minds are made for the truth. Chastity offers them both, and they're marinated in such a bogus idea of love that when you just hold the real thing in front of them, it's like, yeah, that's what I want. Cause like I'm binging out of like a dumpster, and then you hold the filet mignon in front of me. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna lose interest in that pretty quick. But
Mm.
they don't get to see the real thing, or they think that if it does exist, they don't deserve it. I remember speaking at a Catholic high school in Santa Barbara years ago. And after the talk, a batch of these like popular looking, attractive high school girls come up with this big brown like lunch bag and they gave it to me in the parking lot. And I'm right next to the chaplain and the principal, and they're like, don't open this now. And I'm like, okay, and so I kind of just like held it, finished my conversation with the principal. Then I get to the airport. I'm like, dude, what's in this thing? And I open it up. I'm like, wow, it's this massive brown bag filled with contraceptives and a big long handwritten letter from the girls. And I, open up this letter and I start reading in it. It turns out these girls decided before the chastity talk that they were going to protest it. And so they said an idea, let's get condoms and let's put them on all the lockers and all the hallways, all over the locks, the padlocks, and everything. And then one of the girls like, no, 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 let's protest after the talk so we can show how much we hated it. And the other girl's like, oh yeah, good idea. And then they said, after we heard your talk, we realized that the way we're living is not making us happy. Not only do we not want to protest it, we don't even want these contraceptives anymore. Here's them. Here's our morning after pill prescription. Here's our birth control pills. Here's this whole bag full of contraceptives that they didn't want anymore because they realized that they had just been sold a bill of goods, that they wanted love and they thought that chastity stood in the way of that. But when they realized, wait a minute, we're not getting loved by these guys on this campus. We're just being wanted for the
Yeah.
pleasure that we can give them. And so it was just such a liberating experience to have their eyes opened up, and then they didn't even want all these false promises of the world anymore.